So let's continue from where we left in the last part. So in the last part, we discussed the bishop c3, and we have to now discuss the other two possibilities, right? The white capturing the bishop on b7, and what happened in the game gh4. Okay, so these two possibilities we want to look at. But before that, I just want to go back and tell you the idea how the idea of the move rook c3. Okay, just I want to spend a couple of minutes on this because this is important. How do you come? Okay, this is justified in terms of concrete calculation. You have to do when you are doing this exchange sack, you have to do you have to supplement it with concrete calculation. You cannot just go ahead and sack it and then think that, okay, I will think about it, especially in a classical game. This is a classical game we are looking at. This is not blitz where you have to go by instincts only. So so the point is that if you see white's pieces, as I told you, the white rook on a1, the white bishop on b2, these two are totally out of the game, and even the rook on f1 is not participating much in the defense. Okay, so there are only three pieces which are defending: the knight on c3, the bishop on e4, and the queen on e2. These are the three pieces which are defending. And if you compare it with black's pieces, all pieces are participating in the attack. All the 6 pieces are participating in attack. So they outnumber white by 3. 6 minus 3 is 3 pieces. Generally, if it is more than 2, then you have a crushing attack, and generally it leads to mate or devastating material loss. So here black outnumbers white by 3. As you see, these 3 pieces are not participating at all. You don't get the time to bring them into action because black is taking action very very fast. He's not giving white time to breathe also. Okay, so if you play this rook c3, what happens? You remove one of the defenders, the three army men which are holding your station. One of them you remove, so then only the bishop and the queen remains, and you still have 5 attackers and he has 2 defenders, right? So still you outnumber by 3. Okay, 5 minus 2 is still 3. So that is why rook c3 is justified, because you are removing a very important defender, and this is also called removal of the guard, or you can say a removal of the defender, and this is also called annihilation of the defense. You are annihilating the defense. Okay, that is why rook c3 is justified, since white's 3 pieces are not participating in the defense at all. The rook on a1, the bishop on b2, and the rook on f1, they are almost like sitting ducks, and they will be mere spectators in the whole game, and the king will be hunted down. Okay, that is what happened in the game. So there are pieces which do not participate in the whole game, and the king is hunted down. That is what happens if you do not complete the development. Just imagine the scenario: if white had centralized the rooks, the black's rooks cannot be so menacing. They cannot just infiltrate in your territory and kill you, right? That is what is essentially happening in all the lines. If you're seeing majorly, the rooks are crashing through and they are killing white, because white has only 3 defenders in a way. There is other pieces are like mere spectators, especially the rook on a1 and the rook on f1. They are almost doing nothing. Rook on a1 is like dead. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. It's doing nothing. Okay, if white keeps on attacking the king, creating mating threats and all, white rook on a1 cannot participate. So that is how Rubinstein came up with rook c3. Okay, this idea of capturing, removing the defender. This undermines the bishop on e4 further, because the bishop is pinned along the h1a diagonal. This bishop becomes even weaker. He has only 1 defender of the queen. Okay, so rook c3 is double exclamation mark. It is given as a double exclamation mark, not a single exclamation mark. This is a brilliant move. Knight g4 was a good, extraordinary move, but this is like exceptional move. Rook c3 is like, you have to see the whole combination. Now let's look at, we already discussed bishop c3 in the last class. Now we are looking at the other 2 possibilities. First, we'll look at bishop b7. Then we'll look at what happened in the game, taking the queen and that spectacular queen sacrifice. So bishop b7 is another line. In this case, the pawn on h2 is pinned. black takes this, and if you count the material, black is already a pawn up with a devastating attack, and he should win. But let's go through the line thoroughly, as Gary has done also. So we'll look at the whole line, because this is like a crushing attack. Black is going to blow off white from this position. He cannot sustain for more than 4-5 moves. I mean 5-6 moves maximum. It is force mate itself. It's not that, I mean, or you have to give huge material return. You have to give huge material in return. So now the bishop, one line which is possible is you come back with the bishop, right? Bishop f3 or something. But bishop f3 is bad because I just shatter the structure here. Knight f2, knight h2. The idea being that I want to do a discovered check. If you can't take with the queen, because I'll play rook h3 and the queen is lost, right? If you play queen h2, that doesn't help, because I will not exchange the queens. This is a weak player's move. This is very obvious. You will interpose and heavy pieces are opened up. I mean, the king and queen are on the same file with no pawns in between. And I've told you the rooks are very strong in such case. Rook h3 will come and you are destroyed in this case, right? So knight h2 is like, once this pawn falls, the king is totally exposed, and there is no way you can sustain. I mean, this is, you can only hold for 2-3 moves. You are going to lose a lot of material in this case. So what Gary looks at is the possibility that rook f3. This is the only possibility which he considers that this is worth considering, because bishop f3 is like totally is dead in that case. Okay, so in case of bishop f3, one thing you have to understand, the queen is always pinned on the second rank, because when he plays rook f3, you cannot play queen f3, otherwise you get mated on h2. So this is obvious. So after this, white has to capture with the bishop. You don't need to consider queen f3. That is just like in a sideline, you keep it in your memory that queen f3 is not possible. It is a sort of situational pin. You have to keep the queen on the second rank, otherwise you get mated. Okay, so bishop f3 is the only move which is worth considering. Then after that, knight f2, you'll see how the pieces cooperate. There is harmony in black's pieces, and white's pieces are like doing nothing. So there are two lines which he considers. In both the lines, it is forced win for black. One is king g2. King g2 is more, it's easier to see. King g2, queen h3 check. Okay, only square is king g1. Then white gives a discovered check, knight e4. Okay, you have only one square left, king h1, and then the knight jumps to knight g3 mate. Okay, so this is unavoidable. If you go there, it is you are getting mated there immediately, and it is obvious, it is intuitive also. See, in the actual game also, if you see that the king is totally exposed, you can go ahead and sacrifice the material. I mean, with some understanding, with some idea, okay, some concrete calculation you have to do, but it is not necessary that you are calculating everything. This is the analysis, a lot of analysis you do post game. I mean, after the game gets over, then people analyze it very thoroughly. And even without engines, actually till 2000 level, engines are not to be used. That is a very bad thing to do, because otherwise you will not improve. And this, a lot of grandmasters also have commented. Anyway, so king g2, I have told you it's mate, how the mate is happening. King g1 is the other possibility. This also the mate will be delivered, because, so let's see what happens in king g1. So king g1, in this case, let me see how do you do the mate. So you give again a discovered check, knight e4. It's obvious that you cannot go to the second rank, because the rook will land on d2. You cannot move, cannot make a move like king g2, because rook d2 is happening. Rook d2 will happen and the queen is lost. Okay, so so you cannot do you cannot go to the second rank. The only place you can go is, you can go to where will you go? King h1 is, there is some problem in king h1 also. King h1 is the same mate, knight g3 mate. So you have to play king f1. This is forced, right? So now black plays knight d2. Only you cannot sacrifice, I mean, you cannot give the queen for a knight, otherwise you're losing. So the only square left for you is king g2. Okay, now you exchange this. You are exchanging because you see a clear-cut win. Okay, people who are still who are weak, they will exchange without thinking. You have to exchange the pieces only if you see you have a win or you have some advantage coming, because black is attacking vigorously. Okay, he should not sacrifice or exchange the pieces unless he sees some winning combination. And here there's a winning combination. Now, if you take with the queen, what's happening is the rook is landing on d2 and is going to kill you. Okay, if you play king h1, then queen h2 is mate. And if you play king f1, then also rook f2. You have to play queen f2, and then I will play queen f2, and that is mate, right? So that is also rook f2, queen f2, queen f2 is mate. This is obvious. So you cannot play, you cannot take with the queen. If you take with the king, then queen h5 wins your queen, because the dark squares are controlled by the dark squared bishop, and your queen is lost in this process. You cannot save your queen here. So this is a skewer in this case. And if you take with the queen, then the rook lands and you are mated immediately. Okay, so this is the continuation when you play rook f3. Bishop f3 I've already told. Okay, so basically what we have looked at, if you are capturing the light squared bishop on b7, then what happens? This is the whole continuation. In all cases you are winning. Okay, now the other line which happened in the game, which is black sacrificed the queen. Okay, so black has sacrificed the queen. Can you think how would black finish the game? It's a very, very crushing attack. Any idea how should black continue? Netra, you have some idea?
No, I'm thinking.
Okay, think for a minute. Okay, I'll tell you the continuation. So see, the idea is now there are only two defenders left. And black came up with a brilliant rook d2, double exclamatory mark. He sacrificed his queen. Now, if you see, this is a picture which is posted on a lot of, I mean, as a signature of this game. This is the picture, because if you see, almost all black pieces are hanging. The rook on d2, the rook on c3, the bishop on b7, the knight on g4. All the pieces are hanging, and this is typically what used to happen in Tal's game. Okay, Mikhail Tal, he was such a brilliant tactician, and he would say that you can take one piece at a time. Okay, you cannot take all my pieces. So here the idea is very beautiful. You want to undermine the support of this bishop. This bishop is on this important diagonal. Okay, so now again let's try to calculate what will happen. The different pieces are hanging, and let's see how you will try to capture one by one all the pieces, and you will see in all the cases you will get mated. Okay, so first we'll think of queen d2. Queen d2 is what happened in the game. That we'll look at the end. First, let's look at if you capture the rook on c3. If you capture the rook on c3, it's very obvious. White will play bishop e4. You can't do much. You can block with the rook. I'll take this rook. You take with the queen, and then rook h2 is mate. This is again a very beautiful coordination with the rook, knight, and bishop. This bishop is very, very strong. It is actually, the king is in the corner, and it's not letting the white king escape at all. It's always leading to this mating possibility, right? So
Sir, I do not understand this one properly, like this line. So can you just tell it once more?
Yeah. So what I'm saying, he took this, captured here, check, right? What will you do? If you take the bishop right away,
yeah, that's what I'm asking. Why can't
if you take it right now, then also rook h2 is mate immediately.
Okay.
If you take this, then also rook h2 is mate. It doesn't.
Okay.
If you play queen here, then also this is, I will take this. There is no way you will take this. You have to take, because there is no legal move left, and this is mate. Rook h2 is mate, right? And if you play rook f3 also, because the point is the queen is pinned on the second rank. It is called situational pin. The moment you leave the second rank, rook h2 will happen and you will get mated. So if you interpose with the rook, I take this rook, right? You have to take this because there's no legal move left. You have left the second rank, and the moment you leave the second rank, rook h2 happens and you get mated, right? Okay, so this is one line. Some people have gone ahead and taken the queen. I mean, after white captures this, there is another line taking the queen and winning, but this is more efficient. This is the best line, bishop e4, because you are giving check, and it is you are delivering the mate in checks only. Okay, bishop e4, and then you will play rook f3, bishop f3, queen f3, and rook h2 mate. Okay, so now let's see what happens if you take the we have taken this rook on c3. Now we'll see what happens if you take the bishop on b7, right? This looks really bad because you have given, I mean, you're okay. So let's see what will you how will you deliver the mate? Let me think about how you can deliver the mate. You can take the queen also. Taking the queen, yeah. So that is also beautiful. You take the queen first, threatening mate on h2. Right? The bishop will come to g2. That is the only way. Otherwise, I'm going to capture the pawn on h2 and deliver the mate. So bishop has to come back and block the mate. And now a beautiful and brilliant move, rook h3. Exploiting the pin. I mean, this is a sort of conditional pin. You cannot move the bishop because otherwise rook h2 is happening. Rookeh2 is happening. And also now you cannot, I mean, you cannot take this rook. If you take the rook, I am delivering the mate. And if you don't do anything, then anyway rook h2 is happening. So you can give up your piece by playing rook f2 and delay the mate by 1 or 2 moves, but nothing, yeah. I mean, nothing more than that.
Don't help much actually.
It will not with this. You will take with this, and I mean all the pieces are falling after this. Okay, so this is how you deliver the mate in this case. Now, what else can you do? You can take the, I mean, this is obvious, this is easy. You take the knight, then bishop e4 is happening. And after bishop e4, you have to block with the rook, because blocking with the queen is you are giving too much material. So you have to block with the rook. And once you block with the rook, even bishop f3 is winning, but rook f3 is stronger. Now, black is threatening double check, rook f1 double check mate. So you can't, I mean, whatever you do, king cannot play to g1, right? So this is unavoidable. Now you are almost gone. I mean, there's no way you can defend this. You can hold for 1 or 2 moves, but not more than that, because this double check is killing, and all the 2 bishops, they are pointing towards the king. So this is lost position here, right? So
White's totally lost. I mean, yeah,
so,
white is totally lost here.
Yeah, so we have considered the rook capture. We have rook capture on c3. We have considered the bishop capture on b7. We have considered the knight capture on c4. And now the only move which is left is queen d2, right? This is the only move which is left in the position. All the 4 pieces were hanging. I have shown you the different lines in which black is winning in all the lines. Now what black does is, black takes this. Bishop e4, that is the point. This is deflection. You want to deflect the queen from this principal diagonal on which this attack is happening. And now it's like the only move left in the position is queen g2. Okay, otherwise you can play something like rook f3. That is meaningless. So queen g2 is the only move which is which you have to play. And actually there are 2 ways of winning here. Both the ways are good, but the more elegant way is what Rubinstein played, rook h3. Rook h3 is a fantastic move, exploiting the pin. Again, using the concept of pin. If you take queen e4, rook h2 is mate. And you cannot take queen h3 because you are pinned along the h1a diagonal. So Rubinstein found this, and the opponent resigned, because you can I mean, you can hold for 1 or 2 moves. You have to give up all your pieces. You have to play rook f2. Then he plays bishop f2. And next move, you will get mated. I mean, there's no way you can hold this position here. You can just, okay, actually the engine, they will show like bishop d4. You'll first give up the bishop. Then this happens. Then you'll play rook f2. You will take this. And then he plays queen e4. And then you deliver the mate. Anyway, that means it's totally lost. That is... Other way of winning is more a human way that is also winning. rook c2 is also winning. White cannot hold this, because what happens that now what will you do? You are again threatening the mate on h2, the previous idea, but going from this way. You cannot play queen e4 because rook h2 is happening. You cannot play rook g1 because it's a smothered mate.
Knight
The only way is you can block like this, rook f2, but he takes your rook also, and you cannot take the bishop. You are getting mated there.
It's a pin. The queen is pinned.
Yeah, queen is pinned. You can, if you play queen e4, rook h2 mate.
Yeah, there rook h2 is mate.
Yeah, you can play something like rook g1, but this also doesn't hold for long, because what happens? You give a check, bishop g2. He plays rook g2 only move. You give a check. He's forced to go back, and then you take this rook. So this one I think is mate in 5. The other one is mate in 3, something like that. But both are winning. Okay. But the more elegant one is what Rubinstein played actually. He played this, at this point, he played rook h3, and the opponent resigned because he saw that, see, what is even better than taking pieces? I have told you yesterday also, the even better than taking the pieces is to deliver a mate to the opponent, right? Is to checkmate the opponent. And that is what Rubinstein is going for.
Yeah.
Rook h3 is much more elegant than rook c2. Right? Okay, in actual game, you can do both. I mean, it's not that you are looking for brilliancy prize. This won the brilliancy prize, but you are not looking for a brilliancy prize, right? So rook h3 is very elegant. It actually drives home the point that your king is totally boxed in. You have no escape square, and my pieces are like breathing fire. All the two bishops, they are extremely strong. The knight is well positioned. Every piece is coordinating. There's a harmony in the piece, and you cannot hold this. After rook h3 resigned, I mean, there is absolutely no defense to this. As I showed you bishop d4 you have to play. He will take bishop d4. Then you have to play rook f2. He'll play bishop f2. And then you have to play queen.
Jack is totally winning.
Yeah. So that is a meaningless type of moves, which the engine will just try to hold this for 2-3 moves. But okay, the human will realize that this is almost undefendable. You have to bear the pain if you play bishop d4 and again take that, and then again this thing is happening. So he resigned at this point. Okay, so this concludes the whole game. I just want